8 was all about simplifying trig identities. I gave you a 3-part question there. Part A was to simplify secant over tan. And again, if you don't know what these basic definitions are, you won't be able to do this, right? So secant here is 1 over cosine, and tan is sine over cosine. Now you might say, okay, tan's also 1 over cotangent, but you want to bring everything in terms of sine or cosine to try and keep everything on a proper or common ground so it'll be easy to simplify. Now you could have kept this multiplied by the reciprocal, the denominator, but since these are exact same denominators, you could just cross them out. You're left with 1 over sine, which would have been acceptable, but if they said without a fraction, one term, it would be cosecant because these are equivalent. So that's part A. Part B was a complex fraction. Sine over cosine plus cos over sine divided by 1 over sine. And remember how to simplify complex fractions. You multiply each term by the LCD of the entire fraction. The LCD happens to be sine cosine. So each term gets sine cosine over 1, sine cosine over 1, sine cosine over 1. Now in my next stage, I should have no more fractions. The cosine simplified to 1, I'm left with sine times sine, or sine squared. The sines cancel, I'm left, I shouldn't say cancel, they simplify to 1, right? Cosine times cosine is cosine squared. And last but not least, the sines cancel, and I'm left with cosine. Actually, it's not it's cosine. Little typo there. So this should be familiar to you. This is the Pythagorean identity. And this is equal to the number 1. 1 divided by cosine, if you want to keep simplifying, is going to be secant. The last question, which is part C. Once again, just write everything in terms of sine or cosine if you can. Secant is 1 over cos. There's nothing more than I can do, but I can indeed simplify this to 1. I'm left with 1 minus cosine squared, which is a derivation of the Pythagorean identity. These need to be memorized. It's really important in this section and with trig quadratics with substitution. So sine squared is equal to 1 minus cosine squared. Cosine squared is equal to 1 minus sine squared if I just do the subtraction. So in place of 1 minus cosine squared, I can write sine squared. If any of these happen to be a part 1, they could be done with mock substitution. If they're a part 2, they can be checked with mock substitution, substituting an angle of 3 degrees or even 30 for that matter.